Welcome to the disk, selections and cutouts. The images you're going to see as we go through this introduction are not directly connected to this particular disk. The only connection they have is that selections have been made to create them all. When we start to think about selections, how we use them in our photography, and how many ways there are to create them, we can be forgiven for having a bit of a grumble at how much we need to learn. But when has anything in life that is remotely worthwhile ever been achieved instantly? So we have some learning to do. But I think most of us find that that part of the learning process in our photography has its pleasures too. If we think about selections, maybe Adobe Camera Raw and layers, it doesn't really matter what version of Photoshop or even Photoshop elements that we're using, because selections are selections no matter what version we use, and so are layers and Camera Raw. The core techniques are the same across the board. I always think of different versions of Photoshop and elements being like different cars, because 90% of what makes up every car is shared with every other car, and it's exactly the same with layers, Camera Raw, and the subject of this disk, selections. In preparation for this disk, I thought it may be interesting to list all the different ways we can make a selection using Photoshop CS6, and the list reaches 19. If I include tools that don't make a selection but are used to make a cutout, I can add 4 more. Then, if we consider all of the other tools that we use in conjunction with selections, we find there's 10 of those too. Tools like feathering or transforming a selection. So we've got plenty of scope for this particular disk. We're going to start off with basic selections, and we're going to include individual videos that cover the subject in as great a detail as we can. Of course, we could just show you how all of the selection tools work, but that doesn't help much when we're trying to learn. We're going to try to ensure that we not only show you where the tool is found and how it works, but also suggest and demonstrate a typical and practical use for that tool. We may not cover every selection tool because there's little point in that. Why clutter our brains with details about a tool we will rarely use or may never use? We feel some selection tools are extremely valuable in our photography and some less so. Remember, Photoshop is a tool that many graphic artists use, and their needs, while similar to ours in some ways, are not always quite the same. We don't have to know what every bell and whistle does in our software to be able to create good images and make good use of selections too. Over the years, we have developed some great tips and tricks to help us make effective selections, and as we go through the projects, we're going to share those with you. The videos on this disk are recorded at 1280 pixels by 800, the exact size you're watching now. They're all created as MP4 videos, so they are compatible with PCs, Apple Macintosh computers, and also you can sync them to your iPad if you wish. When we sit with an image on our computer screen and we contemplate making a selection to achieve whatever we've got in our mind, whether it's a conscious thought or a subconscious thought, what we tend to do is a cost-benefit analysis. We consider how long the selection will take us, and we try to decide if the finished image will be worth the time spent. Now, most selections can be made much quicker with just a little experience, and that experience is what we have and what we're going to share throughout this disk. As selections become easier and quicker for you to make, then you'll find yourself tackling more of your images because the cost to benefit moves much closer together. Take a look at this image. To make a selection around the entire edge of this complex shape manually took me 6 minutes to achieve. Yes, I'll agree there's still some more work to do here, but how many of you would have guessed 6 minutes was all it took? So if you want the confidence to be able to make cutouts like this one, then you've come to the right place. Enjoy the disc.